Well, hello everybody, it's Thor, and today we're going to be taking a look at Boris Johnson's chart. And I just saw yesterday when I was, online looking at news, and I saw that Boris Johnson was all over the news saying that it looks like he's going to resign. And the article that I saw was Boris Johnson on the brink, and that's why I titled the video, Boris Johnson, is he on the brink? Because I wanted to take a look at his astrology chart and see, is this just the media, maybe having a bunch of hot air, or maybe he has some enemies that don't like him that much. Is there any truth to what's going on, any of the scandals? So I wanted to take a look at his chart since I have his birth time and his date of birth. And so we're going to take a look at Boris Johnson today and see if there is a potential there for him to resign. Now, it's so interesting that, this is all happening right when Saturn's about to go back into the sign of Capricorn. And that's on July 12th. So that's 6 days away from the making of this video. So it's interesting to note that when you see Saturn change signs, that's when you see a lot of karma happen. And we might be actually seeing more resignations of, leaders of governments, because Capricorn, it represents the government, and Pluto's there. So there's changes within the governments and the government structures. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you all for those of you that are here for the live stream. Also, if you guys are new to my channel, please like and subscribe. My goal is 10,000 subscribers. We're at over 1,200 strong now. So I'm really happy because, we pretty much doubled it in the last year, which is really cool. And also, if you guys are interested in taking a look at your own Vedic astrology chart, please book a reading with me. It's 20% off all readings if you use codename Thor at checkout. And the details are down below if you guys are interested in doing that. So here's the situation with Boris Johnson. Okay, and I really didn't know exactly what was going on with Boris, so I had to actually do some research. Because I'm American, I don't keep, I keep up a little bit with the United Kingdom politics, just since they're across the pond. But I'm not as intricately aware as obviously American politics. And hold on, guys, I'm going to shut this window. The live streams. Live streams and dogs barking. Okay. So anyways, what I was going to say is I had to do some research because I remember there was some controversy with Boris. Apparently these photos came out where he was partying it up, having a good time during the quarantines. And that was a scandal, because he looked like a hypocrite, basically, giving all these rules, but not following them himself. So let's take a look at the current situation as I was able to research for any of you guys that don't know what's going on with Boris Johnson internationally. So I guess, so that's called the Partygate scandal. Johnson was photographed having people over for drinks during the quarantine restrictions, and that was a big scandal. And then there's this newer scandal called the Pincher scandal. And this is Johnson's deputy chief whip accused of some sort of misconduct. Impropriety, let's say. I want to make this safe for YouTube, so let's just say impropriety. And then there's all these ministers apparently resigning from the cabinet. And so, I'm saying, however, could there be players trying to use this as a way to remove him from power? So let's take a look at his chart and see if we can get any information. So he's in Venus Bhukti, and we're going to look at his chart in just a moment. But he's in Venus Bhukti, and we're going to talk about that because he has a lot of interesting. The Venus in Johnson's chart is very, it has a lot of peculiar, associations with it. Like it has Rahu with it, it's combust, and let's take a look at it. So let's take a look at the chart. Here's Boris Johnson's chart. And so we see he's a Virgo, so pretty intelligent. I don't think, you get to become prime minister lacking intelligence. But let's take a look at, he's in the Venus Bhukti, okay? So remember I just did a video on Mahadashas and Bhuktis. So a Bhukti is going to be like what kind of specific karma is ripening in Boris Johnson's chart at the moment. And so it's going to be mostly focused on Venus right here. So this is going to be what the focus is during this time in Boris Johnson's life. And so as a reminder, this started back in February 2nd in 2020. So that's interesting to note. That was right around the time of the pandemic. He entered this Venus period. And it's about to end at the end of the year here. So he's going to leave Venus Bhukti on December 3rd, 2022. And then he's going to enter Sun Bhukti. So if we take a look, we're going to be looking at, okay, what does Venus represent in Boris Johnson's chart? Now it's in the 10th house, and 10th house can represent leadership. And so, well, he's prime minister, right? So that's 10th house. Rahu's there, so there's this exaggeration of this ambition. Obviously you have to be quite ambitious to become a leader of a country. So he has that ambition. We got Sun there as well, and Sun gives that charisma and charm as well, and Venus. So it's very interesting. But the interesting thing though is Rahu is a trickster. We're going to talk about that. That's the flavor I'm getting with this whole scandal and possible downfall, is whenever we have Rahu involved, it's like there's this element of unpredictability, and also Rahu is associated with downfalls, because Rahu gets us to do things where we're in over our head. And then, like, for example, Rahu has Boris Johnson at 10 Downing Street, but Rahu can get Boris Johnson into trouble. So what did Rahu and Venus do? Venus is the karaka of partying. And what did he do? Partygate, so he's getting in trouble. Rahu's getting him to do, break the rules, even though he shouldn't have been breaking the rules. He should have been setting the example for everybody. But so that's going to be a problem. Now, if we look at his chart, Venus, it rules the 9th house here, and it rules the 2nd house over here. It's not necessarily a negative planet. I mean, we would usually think, okay, if he's going to resign, we would want to see like 12th house lordship or something with the 6th house going on. So there is kind of this questioning of like, okay, so Venus is not really that bad. So what could be causing the problem in Boris Johnson's chart? And we're going to talk about that, because we do have to look at how the planets are influenced. So let's pretend, that Rahu wasn't there, and, Sun wasn't there, and Venus was just alone, and, it just ruled the 9th house and the 2nd house. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad, but I feel like whenever you're running a planet's bhukti, it's definitely going to have that Rahu influence, and it's also combust. So it's 1 degree, less than 1 degree from the sun. So in Johnson's chart, Venus is not really like functioning really well. So that's the issue. So Rahu's giving that element, and Rahu's associated with downfalls. Like suddenly you go up and then you go down because of scandals. Be aware of that, guys, scandals. So that's where the issue is coming in with Rahu there. And then if we want to get a little bit more information, we can go to the Navamsha chart, the one with the number 9 over here. And we can look at Venus is in the 6th house of the Navamsha chart. Did you see that? And the 6th house has to do with conflicts, problems, accusations, enemies. What's happening right now? His enemies are accusing him of, all this improprieties, being a bad judge of character by having this deputy chief whip. So these people are after him. They want him to resign. And it is very possible that we're going to see a resignation, and it could be by the end of the month. There is a caveat to that, though. If we do see another catalyzing crisis, it could save Boris Johnson. Okay, I want you guys to be aware of that, because there's going to be a really big transit that's happening, and it's been one of the big transits that I've been talking to you guys about quite a while now. So I was going to go back to the presentation. So guys, Venus is combust next to the sun, so Venus isn't necessarily working correctly. Venus is associated with Rahu, and just like I told you guys earlier, Rahu can be associated with scandals and downfalls. Rahu finds loopholes but gets into trouble. And then also Venus is not well placed in the Navamsha chart. And also it doesn't have good dignity in the Navamsha chart as well. Okay, so Venus is not really good in the Navamsha chart. And we're supposed to look at both. When we're judging a Mahadasha and a Bhuti, we're supposed to look at the D1 Rashi chart, and we're supposed to look at the Navamsha chart. Also, I wanted to talk to you guys about the issue of Rahu and Sun. And this is more of a lesson. Obviously, we have a wonderful case study in front of us. But if we take a look at Boris Johnson's chart, we see, you know, these planets are pretty much right on top of each other. They're all within like 3 degrees of each other, by the way. But Rahu and Sun, you know, we see a lot of leaders with this combination of Rahu and Sun. And Rahu, what it does is it does give you that ambition for power, okay? And by achieving power through any means. So let's take a look at that. I was going to share with you guys a little bit what Rahu and Sun together can lead to people gaining power in a sneaky way. Rahu pursues the Sun power. This also can show someone has a shadow side despite their public presentation. So, you know, this is what I was going to talk about, is the cabinet ministers might know a different version of Boris than you know. So you might see what they're showing on the BBC or what they're showing on the news, and the cabinet ministers might know him personally and know they might be in the know of some things that we are not aware of. And that could be the Rahu and the Sun thing that's going on. And that could be possibly why they're basically jumping ship at the moment. So Sun represents Dharma, but Rahu represents things that are anti-Dharma. So there's like this, basically this conflict going with Rahu and Sun, because Sun is like a really positive dharmic planet. And so, you know, there's contradictions. Expect a lot of contradictions in people that have Rahu and Sun. So Partygate is going to be your example. Partygate, you know, there was this quarantine, but he was out partying, you know. It's kind of funny in a way, but not funny. But, you know, Venus definitely wanted to go party. It's funny because Venus is actually the planet of wanting to go party, and that's the bhukti he's in. So let's go to the next slide here. So I want you guys to be aware Rahu can lead to downfalls. Believe it or not, and this could be a little bit of an aside here, but Rahu is even associated with things like the occult and black magic. So if you guys are interested in looking at a chart afflicted by black magic or something like that, Rahu is what you want to look at. Usually a combination of Rahu and Saturn together produces that. And I don't see that in Boris Johnson's chart, but I want you guys to be aware of that. Any type of like dark portals or, you know, weird kind of occult behaviors could be found with Rahu. So Rahu's a trickster. He's just like Loki. He's like the trickster god. Smoke and mirrors. Rahu's craving unearned entitlements. This is why Rahu can lead to a disastrous downfall and scandals. Everyone has Rahu in their chart. So I don't want to pick on Boris Johnson because we all have Rahu in our chart. We all have that little trickster in our chart. So even though we want to, you know, point fingers and say, you know, this person bad, you know, we all have Rahu in our chart. And when you guys are running a Rahu period, even though you might normally have a really placid and loving and kind personality, Rahu is a pent up desire from many past lives. And it can spring so forcefully that you become literally a different person during a Rahu period. So, you know, let's not get too arrogant about it. So, by the way, if Rahu is not as volatile if Saturn is with Rahu or Saturn is aspecting Rahu. It kind of contains Rahu a little more. So those people that have Saturn conjunct Rahu or aspecting Rahu are going to like, it's going to be a little more like, it's going to be watered down. Okay. So, but in Boris Johnson's chart, it's not constrained by Rahu. Okay. So Rahu's with Venus and Sun, and it's like, let's just go full power here. There's a catalyzing event. You guys that have been keeping up with my videos, July 31st, 2022 through August 2nd, 2022, we're having that big Rahu Mars Uranus conjunction that occurs in the 8th house of Boris's chart. And check this out. So I wanted to show you because it is pretty interesting what I see happening in Boris's chart. So this is where this is where the Mars, Rahu, and Uranus conjunction are going to happen in the 8th house, which is a very volatile, explosive house. Okay. And if we look at Jupiter in Boris Johnson's chart, it's at 22 degrees. Well, the conjunction happens at 24 degrees of Aries. That's less than a 3-degree orb. So it's pretty much right on his natal Jupiter. Okay, so this is going to be a big effect on Boris Johnson. So even being this close to that transit, this could definitely show a very a resignation coming very quickly, a very quick departure. Okay, and I find it very interesting also that this, remember guys, when we looked at Vladimir Putin's chart, we saw that he had planets there too. And I think he had Jupiter there, which is quite interesting. But if we look at Jupiter in Boris Johnson's chart, it rules the 4th house of Sagittarius, it rules the 7th house of Pisces there. And then we notice K2's there, and K2 is associated with losses. And K2 can also be associated with surrender, or, you know, resigning or leaving. And also remember, it's happening in the 8th house. The 8th house is like death and rebirth. So I want you to be aware of that. Death and rebirth. So things that suddenly disappear. There could be a sudden departure. You know, it could be one day Boris Johnson saying, you know, I'm not going to resign. And the next day, boom, the headline is he resigned and left. Okay. So 8th house can be very sudden. Now, I wanted to tell you there could be a change in this though. And I want you to be aware of it. It's not a certainty, but the chart does show it's possible. It's possible. Okay. So the other option, and oops, let me bring up the charts. I didn't share screen. The other option, which I was going to share with y'all, is the Rahu Mars Uranus conjunction could represent a catalyst type event that changes public opinion for Boris Johnson. So it could be some really major big thing that happens. And this is what happens when there's like an emergency or a disaster. Sometimes very unpopular leaders will all of a sudden get a lot of support. So that's a potential, I want to say, because I do see this conjunction's happening in the 6th house of Joe Biden's chart. His moon is there. This conjunction's happening in Putin's chart. So this could be a very cataclysmic problem that appears, and you know, all of a sudden the leaders get some sort of support, even though they're very unpopular. All of a sudden people rally around these leaders. That's the other option. But because it's affecting Boris Johnson's 8th house, it could be a sudden departure as well. Okay, I see it more likely that it's a sudden departure, but we'll see what happens here. Oh, and that's my presentation for now. Let me share you one more thing about Boris Johnson's chart, because we're going to talk about the Saturn, and we talked about it for a moment. But one of the things I notice is when Saturn is transiting the 6th house of a chart, it usually offers protection from enemies. So at the moment, interestingly enough, at the moment as of right now, you know, Boris Johnson is about to have a Saturn return. Okay, because transiting Saturn is going to be going over his natal Saturn in Boris Johnson's chart. However, remember, Saturn's been going retrograde, and on July 12th, Saturn is going to be here. That actually might be a bad thing for Johnson. Okay, and the reason is the reason this could be a bad thing for Boris Johnson is when Saturn is there, it's kind of protecting him from the enemies, because Saturn freezes things. Saturn offers a certain amount of protection from enemies when it transits the 6th house of your chart. Like, it's like freezing the enemies, it's keeping them frozen, it's making sure the enemies are not like too much inflicting harm on you. But when Saturn goes back into Capricorn here, this could show that that hedge of protection is being removed. So this could show it's going to leave Boris Johnson more exposed. And so that's where we could see it's more likely that there'll be a resignation. And also what Saturn does when it's transiting the 5th house is, it really suppresses your light. It suppresses your charisma. It suppresses your visibility. It suppresses people, just your charisma and people liking you. So Saturn going through the 5th house can be a very difficult transit. Saturn going through the 6th house is a lot better of a transit for most people. Then Saturn through the 5th house is more challenging emotionally. So that's what I got for Boris Johnson. It looks like, yes, likely. Looks like there could be a resignation, especially because of that Rahu with Venus. He's in the Venus Bhukti. And also we have that really crazy conjunction happening in the 8th house of Boris Johnson's chart. So it is very likely. He's definitely, I would say, in the danger zone at the moment. So let's go ahead and take a look at if there's any questions in the chat. Devika, nice to see you. Nice to see everyone. Thank you guys for showing up. I appreciate all of you. This is a very crazy time. So this could be a time where we see a lot more, we could see more resignations because of Saturn going back into the 10th house of Capricorn, the natural 10th house. We could see more resignations and changes in governments all around the world. So not just with the United Kingdom, but all around the world, because the 10th house represents government in general. So we could see changes there with Pluto currently being in the sign of Capricorn. So thank you guys for joining me, and let me know what you guys think. Do you think, what do you guys think is going to happen with Boris Johnson? Comment down below, or maybe by the time this video fully processes, maybe you'll already be knowing what happened. So thank you guys, and take care, and thank you for watching.